Track saws are becoming more budget friendly because a lot more companies are making them, and I'm finding that a lot of woodworkers are using them in their shop, and some are using them instead of table saws. In my shop, although I have a track saw, I'm still using a table saw. I just find that it makes me efficient in my workflow. So why do I have a track saw? Well, one of the biggest reasons is it is the ultimate jointing machine for veneers, and I guess if you're working with thicker stock as well, it does a pretty good job. What makes the track saw a really good jointing tool for veneers is the fact that there's a splinter guard on the guide rail, and also that the blade rotates up and into the veneer. This way the veneer is protected both from the top and the bottom. We can make this veneer jointing tool work even better for us by switching out the standard blade. The standard blade will do a good job, but we can go one step further by putting in one of these two blades that have a negative rake. What I mean by that is that the teeth lean slightly backwards. This one leans backwards by -3 degrees, this one is -6 degrees, whereas the blade that comes with this track saw leans forward by 5 degrees. Now I have a blade in my table saw that I use strictly for veneer panels that I've pressed or for plywoods. You'll find that any blade that works for aluminum or non-ferrous materials will have a negative rake, and those work well for jointing veneers. And since I do a lot of veneering, I went ahead and made the jig that editor Rob Brown talks about in the 2020 June-July issue of Canadian Woodworking and Home Improvement magazine. The jig is really simple to make and consists of nothing more than a base, which is MDF, and two rectangular rails, stubby rails, that fit into this groove on the guide rail. Rob does a great job of covering this in the article, and I've also shot a short video on making this jig as well as using it, which is something we'll do here in a second. Step 1, change out the blade. Now that the blade has been changed and our track saw is hooked up to vacuum and power, we can now concentrate on the veneers. So here's a couple of pieces of veneer, and while it's nice to sometimes open the book up and get a nice book match, I find sometimes that I get bored with that, so I like to change things up. So instead of leaving it as a book match, sometimes what I'll do is I'll flip one end over, and now I'll end up with another interesting pattern. I'm going to place my cabinet maker's mark across the two edges that we're going to joint and then join. And now I'm going to close the book like I did before. Once the veneers are lined up, we'll put them over our curve mark, taking as much or as little as we need. Now we'll put our guide rail over top of our veneers, slide it up, and we're ready to joint. Make sure to pay attention to your depth of cut, because you don't want to cut completely through the jig nor your bench underneath. The track saw has many uses in the shop, but the one thing that I use it the most for is getting invisible seams in veneers. Now, if you've got a track saw, try a negative rake blade and you'll find you become a better veneerist. And if you're looking for an excuse to buy a track saw, well, there's one right there.